Primitive bow hunting turkeys is going to be one of the most challenging types of hunts that you could possibly embark on, and in this video we're going to give quite a bit of a backstory to previous hunts, and then we're also going to be doing some new hunts that we did just this year. And we're going to give a tremendous amount of information as to the direction that you're going to want to take this. So you're going to get a lot of information, a lot of backstory, and a bunch of new hunts. So if you really want to pursue hunting turkeys with a primitive bow, this is your video.
If you can call the hens in, dude, you've got this unlocked. They're going the other way. He's just got too many hens. We're gonna have to get that as a midday bird. Yeah. Oh boy. He's lighting her up, though, ain't he? Boy. The only chance we have is to piss the hens off. I know shit. Hey, some of them are coming this way. Some of them are coming this way, right? Well, that's a good bird.
In case you guys haven't figured it out yet, I am strictly a voice caller. I just call with my voice. Well, the strategy here is to aggravate the lead hen to absolutely no end and see if she'll bring the gobbler in.
It's a shame that you can't zoom in on that camera. That's what I was saying. I can't zoom in. You just can't, yeah. You got a bunch of them. He's got so many hens. Yeah, but a lot of them are moving this way. Good. They're pissed off. My little one wants to fight. I'll fight him. Fight him. They're all coming back this way. Using hate speech. Use the hate speech. Use the fuck out of it. I'm calling her mama stuff. You might want to get.
We really didn't expect to get on birds this evening. We didn't have a decoy out. This was not even a blind built. We ran across them out in the creek pasture and just started trying to put a play together.
Those might be Jake's. Yeah, I think. Those are Jake's, right? Yeah. That's good. Well, if they would come in, that'd be fine. I'd much rather the dawn. Oh, yeah, I'll shoot it, yeah. That pissed him off.
They kind of started to lose a little bit of interest. They weren't really coming in, so I decided to start unleashing the gobble on them. So I do a fairly decent gobble, but wanted to do like more of a light Jake gobble, and that really got him going then, especially because he had a bunch of Jakes that were running around him, and he wouldn't let any of them come in anyway. One gobbler and a bunch of dang Jakes, so I knew that really pissed him off.
And she's purring and clucking like crazy. They're all coming this way. That's a lot.
The big gobbler, he didn't seem to have as much interest as he did before, so I started to throw him my most sorriest gobble, just pathetic, and hoping that that would get him wound up again. That seemed to, just changing the pitch up a little bit. It sounds ridiculous, but it definitely got him interested. Well, the big gobbler, he's not buying it. He's not coming in, but all these jakes are starting to move in. Hey, I'm a subsistence hunter. I'm a primitive hunter. If I get the opportunity to wreck one of these jakes, I'm going to do it. But I'm aiming for the head. And you may wonder why I'm aiming for the head, and I'll tell you guys here in a little bit. That palm frond really helped conceal my movement from that hen coming in, but you hear her putt. She saw me. Well, I narrowly missed that one. Shooting for the head, that's a tough target. And I suppose you may be wondering again why I'm aiming for the head. Maybe it requires a little bit of a backstory. So a little backstory is probably required. So in my youth, as I was just getting interested in primitive hunting, obviously prior I would have been hunting with modern hunting equipment, rifles and whatnot. And as I really got into the primitive, I slowly started to just transfer all of my modern hunts into the primitive hunts. Well, essentially the same thing happened then with turkeys. As I was an avid turkey hunter. In fact, I loved to hunt them with vintage shotguns, anything that would make it a little bit more challenging. So then, of course, as the way of the deer and the hog, I began to just make my turkey hunts more of a primitive style of turkey hunt. But I did not want to wear camouflage. I wanted to be out on open ground or in a brush blind that I put together, and I wanted to shoot them with stone points. And obviously we've found a tremendous amount of success in shooting deer and hogs with stone points, but people ask all the time, well, why don't you do a turkey hunting video with stone points? Well, I certainly have done a lot of them, not the videos, but I've done a lot of stone turkey hunts, and it pretty much every single time results in failure. Turkey hunting's kind of tough in general, especially if you have to move and draw. They pick you out really easy. If you're holding perfectly still, like let's just hypothetically say you're sitting there with a shotgun, you know turkey's coming, turkey's head goes behind a tree, you pick the shotgun up, you're holding it. That's not the hardest part. The hardest part is just getting them to come in to get the shot, right? So then if you look at somebody like a compound hunter, as soon as their head's going to go behind something, they can pull back, they can hold the compound, they're not moving, they can aim, and then they can get the shot when the shot's right. And it gets a little bit more difficult as you get into traditional, because then you have to draw and hold the full weight of the bow and aim and shoot, but it can be done. This is why a lot of people use pop-up blinds or anything that's going to really conceal their movement or their outline or their image. And then as you get into more of a primitive style of hunt, it's actually going to require, especially the way that I shoot, where I don't hold a draw, I snap shoot. So turkey comes in, I can be up and ready, but I still have to finish that draw cycle. And although it's quick, that's enough time for them to react. And now what I am specifically aiming for is not where it was when I was aiming. So even if I made a perfect shot, a lot of times the turkey moves to some degree before the arrow is ever even released. And honestly, the simple solution to that would be to say, okay, shoot a lighter bow and then hold it full draw. And that's fine, I've experimented with that too, but that's only one part of the problem. So getting them in close enough for a good shot, that's really tough, okay? Then it came into an issue of killing the turkey. So I had previously shot 5 turkeys in the body with stone points and had 0 kills, 0 recoveries. In fact, only 1 ever penetrated, and it was low in the breast, didn't hit anything vital at all. The rest all knocked the turkeys down. It completely knocked them off their feet onto the ground, and they got up and ran or flew away. Now, the first time that happened, I simply thought that that was a fluke. In fact, it came in at kind of a half strut with its wings out, and I put one right on the wing, right where it should be, and it didn't even get past the wing. It knocked it, kind of stumbled, knocked it down, it got up and flew off. It didn't even penetrate through its wing. I thought that was a fluke, so I just kept going. I thought, man, that's just crazy that that happened. I know I can, if I can shoot deer, and pass through them, completely through them with these stone points, certainly I can kill this turkey. Now, this was back before I actually started filming, and some of them I did film. I had just gotten into it, maybe on the tail end of some of these turkeys, but unfortunately I never saved any of the footage. At that point in time, if I came and I made a bad shot or I didn't get one, I came home and deleted the footage. That's what amateurs tend to do instead of saving stuff for great videos like this that I could show you actually shooting them and knocking them down. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage, so you just have to take my word for it. But you'll also come to find that many other people that try to shoot turkeys in the body with stone points rarely get success. I'm not saying you can never get in there, but how often do you really see somebody shoot one in the body with a stone point and recover it? Typically, those are in really soft areas like the head or the neck, or possibly straight up the anal vent if it's strutting away. But again, now you're talking about having, again, an absolute perfect scenario and then being able to make that shot. That's the ideal scenario, but it takes a lot of work to get to that spot. You know what I'm saying? They don't always have that opportunity before they see you. So realistically, I was spending a tremendous amount of time in a turkey blind calling, trying to get stuff to me, and then of course you end up using a decoy because you're trying to get them in close enough to shoot. So it starts to get a little bit further off of primitive the more you get into it. And then of course, you guys have seen me work with some primitive style decoys before. I've actually used a mounted hen, saying feasibly you could shoot a hen and you could take the skin off and you could preserve the skin, make like a grass body, wrap it around it, and that would be like a primitive decoy. So I was able to rationalize going, they could do this, so we can try that. Then also you've seen where I've hunted them with the flintlock and I made the carved wooden decoy to get them to come in. That was kind of tough. Most of them were kind of scared of it, but eventually we got some that would come in. You'll see in this video that I'm going to be using a modern decoy because I'm just trying to bring them in to get a shot. So I've hit 5 birds in the body and 4 were bounce off. Knock the turkey down, arrow bounces actually back to me or sticks in its wing and just kind of sits down. So I've shot them kind of high in the wing, I've shot them directly on the wing, a little bit lower, and one right up the back that was facing away from me. Again, it just kind of skated up and then it didn't penetrate the body. It just kind of changed directions and went up the back. And then later I shot one through the body but a little bit low. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the reason for that is a turkey's body is a lot harder than you think it is, and that wing actually acts as sort of an armor. Now, you don't have a problem really shooting through it with steel points because, as we talk about in the Secrets and Science of Primitive Archery book, we've got a big chapter in there that's the static friction test, and it shows how much less resistance, how much less friction a steel point has versus a stone point. So we absolutely have that data showing that. Well, that also proves to be true on shooting turkeys because their body is pretty darn hard, and then trying to go through those feathers, there's simply too much friction, there's too much resistance in a stone point, especially one that has any measure of sharpness, that has serrations on it, that the energy that it takes to penetrate through the turkey is actually more than the turkey weighs while balancing on its 2 feet. Now, it might work out a little bit different if the turkey was laying on the ground and maybe had some extra support, but you're talking about these birds standing and balancing on 2 feet, relatively easy to knock off balance. So instead of the arrow penetrating through the turkey, it just tends to push the turkey, and that is the opposite and equal reaction. So every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and typically the reaction is that the arrow penetrates on something like a deer or a hog, where in the case of something like a turkey that's much lighter and has quite a bit of resistance but shooting between its feathers, the reaction in the energy being transferred from the arrow doesn't result in penetration, it results in actually moving the bird. So I've put together a very simplified demonstration for you with a light block of styrofoam, which would essentially represent the turkey, and then of course we're able to just roll this with a sharpened stick on the end. And I'll give you at least a visual to see that because the styrofoam is so light, it does not penetrate. It simply pushes it. And that's because every action has an equal and opposite reaction, the action being the projectile coming in, and then the reaction is the target moving away. What changes is if we have a heavier target, let's just say something like a deer, then we get penetration very easily. So it's easy to see the differences between when the target is too light and the reaction is to push away, as opposed to when we have a heavier target, the reaction is to penetrate. Now that being said, I can see other people saying, well yeah, but what about like a rabbit or a squirrel? They're really small and they weigh even less yet, but you can shoot through and penetrate those. Remember, those are very light-skinned, they're very soft targets, and so it doesn't take very much to penetrate them at all. You know, compared to that turkey that's really got that kind of armor plating for a wing and then a relatively hard body. So penetrating rabbits and squirrels is actually quite easy, and that's why we don't see that the arrow just simply pushes them. And I know what some of you might also be thinking is, well, you just need to shoot a heavier arrow. You get more penetration with a heavier arrow, right? So here's a 5-pound weight that we're going to balance on top of this, and we have the same exact result. Now certainly there was once an argument as well where somebody's like, if you're not penetrating the turkey, you just need to shoot a heavier arrow. So that seems like people love to just resort back to, you know, the Dr. Ashby work. Well, if you're not getting enough penetration, then you must shoot a heavier arrow. The reaction is occurring regardless of the weight of this projectile. Well, we even show in this test that adding weight to the projectile isn't going to stop the reactionary phase. It's not that we don't have enough to penetrate, it's the reactionary phase, it's the turkey being pushed. If I have this same exact bow, I've made complete pass-through shots on deer, and then I have killed bison with this bow, certainly it has enough kinetic energy and momentum to kill a turkey. The difference is that reactionary phase of it pushing the turkey's body rather than penetrating. Now you can see what happens where if we, instead of using this sharpened stick, we sharpened a thin little piece of wire, so we're decreasing the friction. It takes much less energy to penetrate the target. Now it's still going to push the target, but you can see that there is a measure then of penetration, similar to how it was with the thicker wood shaft with the block behind it. So rather than simply pushing it, we can actually penetrate it by decreasing the friction of the projectile. And that's essentially what shooting a metal point does. That is why a steel point will still penetrate the bird's body significantly better than the stone point, because the steel point has less friction. So then, of course, knowing all of this, my next step was to make a much skinnier, like 4-shafted arrow with a really small little point on the end of it, as minimal serrations as possible, and let's see if we can get that to penetrate through. And in that instance, that's where I hit just a little bit low below the wing and ended up shooting through the breast meat and got penetration, but of course that's in a softer area too. It got perfect penetration, but it was a non-lethal hit. The arrow passed completely through, the bird ran off, and we never found it. So this is about the point that I started head hunting. I've shot enough turkeys in the body to realize that this isn't going to work, so if I'm going to do this, we're just going to start shooting for the head. And I was like, you know what, let's really practice. So I started putting in a lot of time holding up in the shooting position and really practicing on hitting something between the size of a golf ball and a tennis ball. I wanted to make sure that I could hold in the loaded position and then make that draw and shoot really, really fast. And of course, the unfortunate part is even when you try to do that, there's always that slight movement. So we talked about that before. Even if I can hit a golf ball or a tennis ball, every single time, 10 out of 10 shots, draw back and make that shot. If I have to draw, there's always going to be some sort of slight movement, and so therefore the shot's always going to be off. So anyway, started head hunting. I wanted to see exactly how hard it would be to put this together, just trying to shoot in the head with a stone point. Alright, so looking up here, right where Vastin's in there messing around, great spot to sit, and you got a lot of natural cover. And then I'm going to carve a shooting hole right through those palmettos, so there's very little work that really needs done there. Have to be out here at the big pond, cattle trail coming down. Okay, come down so they can see it. But obviously liking to walk roads and stuff like that, so I'll be setting the decoy up really close, kind of like where the time-lapse camera is, and probably right through here.
Sitting there just like that. When he presents himself, then you shoot. Well, a lot of gobblers over there roosted still. I don't think they've pitched down yet. I'm not positive. Just letting them know where I'm at. Hopefully they come this way. There's a bunch of them. I'd be stoked if the Jake came, honestly. It sounds like there must be 5 or 6 over there, though.
This was an absolutely magical morning when it comes to turkey hunting. We had these 3 gobblers, and then 3 more ended up showing up later. Vastin put me in this spot really early in the morning, and I thought it was one of his better spots, and honestly it was probably his best spot. That's just the way he is. He'll always try to give the other person the better area, and I tell you what, we got some phenomenal, I mean phenomenal footage this morning. Look at all this nonsense. Look at these gobblers. When I said this was a magical morning, I mean really look at this. The gobblers strutting, fighting, chasing each other. This is a truly magical morning. Well, the hens came in first, and the gobblers are still pretty far off. They're kind of on the background far right of the screen, and I just held still as a stone as the hens milled around, hoping that the gobblers would follow suit. Well, a few of the gobblers did come through, but they were still pretty far out. But I tell you what, I barely moved, and you could hear them purr and cluck. They were on to me in a second. Tell you what, this is a really tough game to play. I think about every turkey hunter in the world has seen this before. That gobbler's hung up out there about 30, 35 yards. Now I could crack that any day of the week, even with the flintlock. Can't get them to come in just close enough for a shot. But boy, they are fired up. This is the opportunity. This is what it comes down to right here, right now. Just remember that the camera angle and my shooting angle are not exactly the same.
Dang it. As soon as you start to shoot, they start to move. And that just sets in like a panic. It was right there. It ain't gonna get any better than that. It is not gonna get any better than that. I've had enough. I don't want it anymore. I don't want to do it. I'm done with it. Absolutely done. I'm done with it.
You can see it comes in at a half strut, and just as I get ready to draw and shoot, just before the arrow releases, watch that tail. Tail drops, it drops strut, just clips the back of its neck.
As soon as you start to shoot, they start to move.
Now, of course, we could just continue this and continue trying to shoot turkeys and figure out how to do it with stone points. But that was a point that my path started to diverge from this, and then realizing that, is it possible to kill turkeys with stone points? Yes. But is it practical in the eyes of primitive man? And that's where I started to run into a real hang-up. When you think about the sheer amount of time and effort that goes into hunting a turkey and the very low success rate, and then factor in the relatively small amount of meat that you get from it. So an extremely hard animal to hunt with a bow, an extremely hard animal to kill with a bow, and a very small reward overall in the amount of meat that we get. So from a subsistence hunting standpoint, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me to pursue turkey hunting. Now this is where we would have diverging paths, okay? Now everybody can do whatever they want to do in hunting, and I think that's great. This is where I took a different path, and a great example is my hunting buddy Vastin. You see me hunting with him all the time. He loves hunting turkeys. He is ate up with it. He doesn't mind shooting them with a steel point. He knows how the stone point thing goes. He's like, I don't care, I love hunting turkeys. It's the challenge of it, and that's why he wants to pursue that. Where me, I typically base my hunts off of subsistence style of primitive hunting. The goal for me is to recreate what early man would have done, and I am out here trying to shoot for food. So after so much time of trying to kill turkeys and it's not working, I just simply think this isn't making a lot of sense for me personally. I would much prefer to go target something else, deer or hogs or even rabbits, shooting fish, something else that's actually going to give me a much better result. So that's the path that I take, and then Vastin, like many others, and there's nothing wrong with either path. I think just whatever it is that suits you, whatever you want to do, he loves the challenge of the hunt. He's perfectly fine putting in hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to get the shots to finally kill one. So that's like, it's reward seeking by putting in a tremendous amount of work. And I used to do that too when I was younger. That's why I pursued hunting turkeys for so long, was I just wanted to be able to go do it. So a great example also is, for many people, the challenge of the hunt, or the challenge of, say, like a trophy-minded hunt, that counts for a lot of people. That is how they get their appreciation of the hunt. That's the end goal, is to maybe kill a big buck, or to kill a turkey with a bow, or do something that's incredibly difficult. That's their way of accomplishing the challenge and fulfilling their hunt. Whereas with me, I don't care that much about the trophy aspect or even the difficulty per se. I mean, obviously I care about the difficulty, otherwise I wouldn't be hunting with sticks and rocks. But it's like I model everything that I do after being a subsistence primitive hunter. And so therefore, when my mind says I'm wasting time sitting here trying to shoot a turkey to get very little reward as of meat, then I choose to go pursue something else that I can hunt and actually stand a much better chance of killing, even when I get the shot. I've talked to Vastin about this to no end, where he doesn't mind shooting a steel point. He loves to do the turkey hunt, where I say I would rather shoot a hog with a stone point than to kill a turkey with a steel point. And I love that he loves the challenge of the turkey hunt, so he gets so ate up with it. I love it for him that he does it and he accomplishes it and he puts a tremendous amount of work in. I can see what that means to him, so I greatly appreciate that mindset, but it's not what fulfills me. Just like I've many times told folks that I would much rather shoot a deer with a stone point and a self bow than shoot a world record buck or a 200-inch whitetail in the wild with anything other than sticks and rocks. Now, I like antlers just fine. I like a big trophy animal just fine, but that's not my goal. If the goal was to get one of those, then I would be hunting in camouflage and in a tree stand and doing everything I could to meet that challenge, to get that animal, where that specific animal is not the trophy to me. The method of the subsistence hunter is the trophy aspect to me. That's what fulfills my hunt. So I still stand by that today. I would rather shoot a doe with a stone point than shoot a big old buck with anything other than. So like even a steel point, like, well, you can shoot this big buck with a steel point, or you can shoot this doe with a stone point. I'm telling you, I will choose that doe 100 times out of 100. But again, that's just my personal preference, and I love it for you guys, for you to do whatever your preferences are. But now at least you know where I'm coming from. One thing Vastin will tell you, if you ever get the chance to talk to him, is that even shooting them with steel points, you have to make a perfect shot, because far too often, even if you put one in the vitals and you'll kill it, if they can get their legs and running and they can take off and start to fly, they can glide a great distance, and you can lose birds that way, especially in wooded areas. So very difficult to blood trail a flying turkey. So really trying to anchor them in place is tough, and I've asked him, he's shot several in the body and lost them over the years as well, and he's tried shooting them straight on, he's tried shooting them and cutting the hips so they can't get up and run to fly, and realistically, he says just trying to make that perfect shot through the wing to just hammer that heart and lungs is what's going to bring it down the fastest. If you can drop one in there perfect, like he's done, he says it'll go 5 feet, flap, and it's done. Then you just have to get them really close, and you got to make a perfect shot. And then if you're off a little bit, like you can see in this video where a bird comes running in, he hits it, it's a good shot. But the turkey flaps, it takes off, it flies, and luckily he did find that turkey at the edge of the pasture before it got into the woods.
Well, got me a bird. Beautiful Osceola gobbler. Primitive bow. Awesome experience. Awesome turkey. Doesn't get any better than that.
Now I also know too that there's going to be folks saying, well, what about bone points? Make a bone point. That would be a lot slicker and would probably get better penetration. Or what about just a big bone spike? And to that I would say, if you want to do it, by all means, please go do it, and then let me know how it goes. At this point, I just don't even want to hunt them anymore, because again, all the time that I'm going to spend, even if I found a way to shoot through the body and kill them, I still look at this, even with stone tools, I still look at this as such a misallocation of time that I could be hunting something that I have a significantly higher chance of getting up on, shooting, and recovering, where if I'm continuing to play this turkey game, it's actually cutting away from all the time and the fun and enjoyment and the data collection that I could of other types of hunting. Where I still look at this going, if you really wanted to kill turkeys way back in the day, I think maybe snaring them would be your best option. Maybe you've seen the bone antler and ivory test video we did where it really didn't have good penetration at all on the bison. Maybe that would be different with a turkey, and it would just penetrate in enough and stick it and kill it. I also see it being a situation where even if you make a really good shot, put it in the heart and lungs area, that it's not lacerating, it's just jamming it in there, and that might be enough time for the bird to take off and fly away, and then you never see it again. And then maybe you use a flat ground broadhead style of stone point or bone point. Maybe that would penetrate better. Obviously, they don't have a lot of lacerative qualities. They're just not terribly sharp compared to stone, so you might get the penetration. Again, maybe you'll kill them, maybe you won't. You also have the opportunity to make a more elaborate style of head. Thad Beckham, quite a while back, did a video making an antler or bone tipped point and then had pieces of wood sticking out of it. So this way, if you hit it directly in the head with that big spike, that would kill it. He did. He shot one, hit it square in the head and killed it with that. And then the idea was that if you just slightly missed, that those wooden prongs sticking out would be enough that it would hit and break the neck. And later on, I think he did another video as well where he shot one on a glancing blow, but it didn't work. It didn't kill it. So then the other option would be to maybe start adding little blades. So it's like you could start putting a tremendous amount of time into building something to get some laceration to cut the head or the neck. Again, it just circles right back to putting a tremendous amount of work, time, and effort into something that has very little reward in meat when considering subsistence hunting. If you guys want to go do it, then I'm supporting you. Please go do it and then let me know how that goes. But at least for me, this is the last hoorah as far as I'm concerned. I don't have any interest in hunting turkeys with bows and arrows anymore. Now Vastin's going to, he loves it, but he doesn't like to carry a camera and film. So if you want to see more videos, you talk to him and convince him to carry a camera and I'll give him one. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Hopefully you gained at least some perspective on turkey hunting and what it takes to be successful in it. And if you want to go out there and do it, more power to you. I'm really excited for you guys and I hope that you guys are successful. For me, this was my last hoorah. I don't want to mess with them anymore. Not saying you'll never see me shoot one, because if I get the chance in deer season or something, then there's a good chance I'm going to take the shot and I'm going to try. Eventually it'll come together. And to me, it's going to be more of an opportunistic sort of a situation, just as it would have been for primitive man. If I come along, I get a shot, am I going to take it? Sure. But am I going to sit down and try to call them to me and get the perfect shot and take them? Probably not for me anymore. Never say never, but I think that's probably going to be it for me.